Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Tonight, our guest is Phillip Jones, CEO and founder of Second Chance, Pediatric Kidney Patient, Transplant Games Participant, YNOTT Foundation Outreach Coordinator, and kidney broadcaster and advocate. Phillip's journey with kidney disease begins when he was just 4 years old. He caught strep throat from a family member causing a kidney disease called post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis. Phillip has had a number of biopsies as a child. Unfortunately, he began to have seizures caused by his kidney failure as a child. From the ages of 4 to 16, his kidney function was only at 30%. His kidneys began to drastically fail, leading him to begin peritoneal dialysis. Even as a senior in high school, he refused to let his disease rule his life as he continued to be active on his school sports teams. In February of 2007, at the age of 17, he got the call and had a kidney transplant at the UCLA Medical Center. After his transplant, Phillip graduated from Gardena High School, and then he took part in the U.S. Transplant Games in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. In 2010, his kidney went into rejection, putting him back on dialysis. Just 3 months after going back on dialysis, Phillip had brain surgery as a result of a subdural hematoma caused by the heparin that's used during dialysis. In 2016, Phillip returned back to college and went back to theater and joined a club dedicated to minorities that had dreams of becoming a teacher. Since 2018, Phillip has achieved 5 awards with this theater program. In 2019, Phillip became the California rep for the YNOTT Foundation Youth Needing Organ and Tissue Transplants. And in 2022, he added the title Outreach Coordinator. In the time that Phillip has been with YNOTT, Phillip has done 8 events for patients in Southern California. He's also been a part of putting together 2 of the symposiums for YNOTT. In 2021, Phillip started a Second Chance show, which is dedicated to telling the stories of courageous and fighting individuals and educating pre- and post-transplant patients through educational videos and conferences. Between November 4th, 2021 and November 4th, 2022, Phillip has collaborated with other transplant advocates and has hosted 4 conferences dedicated to transplant life. The first being preventive kidney care, the second in-center and home dialysis, the third blood pressure and diabetes, and the fourth what we call the Guide to the Transplant List Conference, where professionals were on from liver, heart, lung, and kidney areas to present to people making their way to the list or already on the list and telling them what they should do and what they should not do to get on the list and to stay on the list. Recently, in September of 2022, Phillip added another component to A Second Chance by starting A Second Chance magazine, which recognizes individuals doing great work in the community and in the transplant field, along with other fields of work. It also has columns dedicated to encouragement, artistic view, exercise, and nutrition, as well as culinary. The motto for A Second Chance Phillip came up with is, quote, "We are here to save and change lives," unquote. You can go to A Second Chance website at www.2ndchance.net. That's www.2ndchance.net. And by the way, folks, if you want to drill down on Phillip, you want to know more about him, check out the comments to the original broadcast that appears on my Facebook page. Lots of interesting information there. So please give a warm welcome to our friend, Phillip Jones. Phillip, how are you doing tonight?
Uncle Jim, it's a pleasure. How are you, sir?
Terrific, terrific. Did I state everything correctly in the introduction?
Most definitely, sir. Most definitely.
Okay. Um, Little shout out to our friend Shirley Brill is with us, and our friend Bobby Reed is with us tonight checking things out. So shout out to our friends. Um, please tell us a little bit about where you grew up, your education, and your employment experiences.
Okay. Well, I mean, I technically grew up in a number of places because my parents are divorced. So I spent some time with my mom. Also spent some time with my father. Um, when I was with my mom on that side, I have a lot of cousins and things of that nature. So we spent a lot of time together. So, spent a lot of time, spend the night at my aunt's house and going places with them and things of that nature. So, but I consider myself, I grew up in the area of South Central LA, 42nd and Western for the people who know the area, which is right down the street from University of Southern California. I currently reside in Inglewood, California, 5 minutes away from SoFi Stadium where the Rams play. Um, when it comes to my education, I went, like you said before, I went to Gardena High School. Graduated from there after had my transplant in 2007, which was my senior year actually. Second semester of my senior year was February 25th. And I remember the time very vividly. Went through all these months. Getting back to being who I was after the transplant. And I remember I got a call from my nephrologist saying that I was cleared, all clear to go. I can go back in public. You're at that time after that where you got to stay in the house. If people come over, you got to keep your mask on and do those types of things. And so I got a call, and my doctor was like, "You're cleared to go out." So I made sure that I made it to graduation, and people were looking around like, "Where'd you go? You just probably just left, and nobody heard from you." I kind of halfway explained my situation. I still at that time wasn't as open about it as I am now. Um, After that, I because I was a year behind everybody else in age, I was able to return back to school and read and do that year, go to prom, do senior activities, all that stuff, and finish up and get my diploma. So after I did that, this kind of ties into the work experience part. um, my first year in college, I was actually the varsity coach, quarterback coach from Maynards High School out here in Los Angeles, which is also down the street from where I grew up at. And so after that season was over, spring semester, I joined our track team, ran there for that year, at LA Southwest College, and then the football season after that, I played a season, and then right after that was in 2010 was when I started having issues with my transplanted kidney, um, and so right before that transplanted the issues with my transplanted kidney, I started working at Disneyland. It was like I believe May of 2010. I started working at Disneyland and had a lot of things coming down the pipelines with raised opportunity that nature, and was very excited for the time that I was going to have at that employment. So, but then again, like I said, my kidney started to reject. Just kind of going with and I stopped going to school after the rejection issue, because I had, like you said, my brain surgery and things of that nature. So it took me a minute to get back to who I was. Maybe about 2016 as well. I started working. Well, in between that time, actually, I coached um, middle school volleyball. My sister played volleyball for a middle school team, and they needed volunteers and stuff like that. And I had dibble dabbled in the area, a little bit. So I said, I have no problem, stepping in. I didn't want them to cancel the season or anything like that for lack of coaching or whatever the case may be. So, my sister did what she was doing, so I said, I have no problem, with showing up to help. So I did 2 years coaching there. Um, and then also, but before I coached there, I coached at Washington High School as their assistant quarterback coach there as well. And then 2018, as I was still in school, I took a half of a break and I started working at Universal Studios. Um, and I work so much in a small amount of time. I lose track sometimes of telling this story, but I also used to work at after school program at a middle school for 2 years, um, where we did lesson planning, coaching, program leading, all that stuff. So I've had theater programs, I've had sports teams, you know, the whole 9 yards for middle school and high school area.
Okay. Philip, just for the record, what is your date of birth?
November 23rd, 1989, Thanksgiving Day.
Okay. Um, it's my understanding that your kidney journey began when you were 4 years old. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened?
Yeah. So I caught strep from a family member, um, and it's crazy because at the time, my dad didn't really want me to be over there at that time, and for however reason, I ended up still over there, and of course, like I said, caught it, and it led to other issues that I had to deal with. And one that you mentioned was the seizures. I remember I'll never forget. I was 4 years old, and I was sitting in my grandparents' den area, and because at the time I was living, I was still kind of going back and forth with my dad and my mom, but I was really kind of like at that point with my dad and my grandparents' house, and we kind of had a schedule of how things went, and I remember it was in the morning. I was sitting there eating, and all of a sudden I caught myself staring at the TV. As a kid, your parents always they tell you, if you stare at the TV, you're gonna go blind. You stare at the TV, your eyes gonna get, crazy stuff like that, right? So I remember eating it, but the only thing that went through my mind was I better start eating before I get a backhand out of nowhere because I'm not eating. That was just how most of us kind of grew. You eat your food when it's there or whatever. So um, I remember when I came out of that trance, I was in the process of putting a spoonful of cereal in my mouth, and that's when I started going into a seizure. Um, my grandmother picked me up immediately at that point. My grandfather called my dad. After about midway between the den and the living room, they switched. My grandfather took me. My grandmother got on the phone. My grandfather sat me in the chair that's in the living room, and he just rocked me, and we just sat there, and I calmed down. Um, and then I remember my dad came, pulled up, we got in the truck, and drove to Children's Hospital of LA. Um, didn't have a seizure all the way there until I jumped out of the truck.
Mm.
When I got out of the truck, I went into another one, and by the time I got in the hospital, the doctors were actually on their way down, and they saw the type of seizure that I was in, which was a blessing because they were able to identify why I was having those seizures just by seeing the type of seizures that I had. And so that was when they called the diagnosis and did the biopsy and stuff, which I still have a scar from to this day because at that time, again, this is 1993. So they didn't have the technology that they have now, with the needle, just take a needle and go in there and get a piece and call it a day. At that time they had to, cut you open and take a piece and things of that nature. So I still have that long scar, on my back area. Um, so yeah, it was a crazy time. Spent 2.5 months in the hospital at Children's Hospital of LA. The only thing I can say about that time was, and just continued time, was I was blessed to have the parents that I have because even though they were divorced, they still found a way to stick together to be able to take care of me and raise me.
Okay. One after they did the biopsy, what was your diagnosis? What did they decide was wrong with you?
Um, the honestly, Uncle Jim, I didn't know the full name until uh not too long ago. I guess because I was so young, my doctors was like, let's just keep these words to a minimum so he can understand what we're telling them. So only thing I knew about was post strep. Till for some reason, someone said, look up what the name of this is, and then I looked it up, and so it's post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis, and it was I think without, and it's crazy to say this, but I think without this illness, I wouldn't be who I am today. I I probably would have the work ethic that I have because I've always wanted to be an athlete, but who knows if I'd have had the skill sets in other areas that I have them in, or the mind that I have, or the people that I have around me. I think this illness built who I am today.
Okay. Um, I understand that from the ages of 4 to 16, your kidney function stayed at a level of about 30%. When did your kidneys drastically begin to fail, and how often were you monitored?
I was seen by a pediatric nephrologist every month. I had an appointment set every month. Dr. Carr and Dr. Peterson, who I talk about often because they took care of me when I was in their care. They made sure that I knew what I was going to be taking on in the future as an adult. Again, I saw them every month, and the great thing about those two is that they were best friends. They used to go on fishing trips together, camping together, vacations together, and all that stuff. So when one retired and passed me to the other, it was like there was no switching. It was like it was like you looking at one twin and going to another. They were the same person, had the same education, had the same thoughts, everything like that. Um, and so at 16, I remember, I had to do labs before I go to my appointments. And I remember when I walked in that appointment, and my doctor said, uh, "So it's about that time. Your numbers are really starting to drop very drastically. It's time for you to go to transplant and dialysis. It's that time." And it was at that time when a couple months later was when I realized why every month when I had an appointment, my doctor started off with our appointments with, you're going to need to go on a transplant list. You're going to do dialysis. And I'm like, it got to a point where I got irritated as he kept saying it. And I'm like, dude, like, you don't have to tell me this every time we have an appointment, But what he was doing was setting me up for success, in easier words to say. Because what he did was he got me ready to understand what I was getting ready to go through. He got me physically, mentally, emotionally ready, because when I heard that come out of his mouth, for me it was all right, full speed ahead, let's go. I didn't take the time to sit and pout. Oh, I got to go on dialysis. It was all right. Well, I knew it was coming, so let's go, let's do this. And I was blessed enough to be able to be in a situation where I could decide if I wanted to do peritoneal or do in-center, which at that time I chose peritoneal dialysis.
Okay. Talk to us a little bit. When did you begin to do uh, peritoneal, and what were the steps that led you to choosing to do peritoneal dialysis?
I started dialysis literally the next month after that appointment with my pediatric nephrologist. He made an appointment for like the next week to go see their pediatric nephrologist at a different location under Kaiser. And then set up everything for training and everything like that. Training wasn't that long. I blew past that because I picked certain things up quickly, especially when it has my life on it. And so I believe so. I believe it was July when the doctor told me I started in August. Um, and so what led me to doing PD was, my first question to them was, can I still go to school? I mean, that was my number one priority, was to not stop school, be able to graduate and continue to live, as much of a normal life as I could. So I chose that option to put me in a position to be able to continue my education, continue somewhat living as a kid, to grow up. And I said, okay, well, if it comes to a point in time where I need to do in-center dialysis, then it'll be after I graduate. It didn't get to that point until later, but so yeah, that was really my reason behind picking peritoneal dialysis.
Okay. How long were you on PD?
6 months.
Okay. Were there complications or issues?
Nope, none. Not one bad day,
Okay.
not one bad treatment, nothing.
Now, I understand that you were a senior at Gardena High School and that you were pretty active in sports. You refused to let your life be ruled by your kidney issues. Can you tell us why you took that position? Why did you refuse to permit your disease to rule your life?
Because I lived with it for all those years. What was the point of letting it ruin my life now? I didn't let it ruin my life as a kid coming up, going outside playing and, doing what kids do, falling off walls and climbing trees and, doing, things like that. What was the point of letting it ruin my life now? I saw no point in that. There was no logical reasoning for me saying, okay, well, I'm on dialysis now. I guess I can go throw myself a pity party and go sit in the corner and cry about it. No, I'll live my life. I'm gonna finish school. I'm gonna do what I do.
Okay. Our friends are talking to us a little bit. The crew from YNOTT wants to let us know that they're watching. Our friend Shannon Mulroy from Long Island, New York, just says you rock, Philip. You're making a huge difference. And Pete Teach is saying hello to both of us. So you got a fan club here, Phil.
I appreciate you all for joining us very much. And again, thank you, Uncle Jim, for having me. I appreciate you.
Oh, no worries. I understand that you began college at the Los Angeles Southwest Community College. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. And what year was that?
2008.
Okay. And when were you first listed for a kidney transplant?
2006, right around the same time I started dialysis.
All right. And that would have been at the UCLA Medical Center?
Yes, which is now actually called the UCLA Mattel Children's Hospital. At that point, I believe it was all one hospital, just with the children's component to it. Now they actually have a separate hospital for children.
Okay. It's my understanding that by February of 2007, you received the call and had a kidney transplant at UCLA. Can you tell us what happened?
Yeah, February 25th. I was sitting in my room. I went to church that day, said some prayers, listened to the word, and came home, did my normal Sunday thing, which is pretty much laying in bed after church, because I was just trying to get myself, together for the week, to start my, school week for Monday. And I remember 4 o'clock came around, and my dad came and knocked on the door. Hey, you got a phone call. And I got on the phone, it's Mr. Jones, yes. He said, okay, well, this is Miss So-and-so from UCLA Medical Center. And, I'm calling to tell you that we have a kidney for you. And my first question was, how fast do I need to be there? And she was like, we need you here, but we don't need you here that fast. Well, all my dad heard when I told him that, and I repeated exactly what she said, all he heard was be there fast. Everything else went out the window because he jumped in the shower, immediately got dressed. I'd already been in the shower. I just got dressed, had my bag was already, they always tell you, make sure your go bag is ready to go by the door because you can get the call anytime. I just picked up my bag and walked out the house. He's driving a billion miles per hour trying to get to UCLA. And I'm like, bro, let's make it to UCLA, please. I want to make it there to get this transplant. I don't want to make it there so I can be seen for some other stuff. So a lot of emotions at that time because again, 17-year-old that's been dealing with this issue and have known that this time was coming for 13 years. Of course, when coming up, you hope that you never have to deal with it. You hope that some weird way that your health just stays together just a little bit so you don't have to go through these necessary issues and changes. But I was definitely blessed, man, to get that call. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, Uncle Jim. I always told myself growing up, if I didn't have this transplant by 18, I wasn't gonna make it. And I truly felt that. And to get it at 17, probably almost 17 and a half, was just truly a blessing.
Wow. Wow. So how long between the time that you started dialysis and the time you were transplanted? What was a period of time?
6 months.
That is very fast, my friend.
Well, I mean,
Very,
well,
very fast.
you've been in the pediatric space, so you know this. Pediatric patients have priority on the list. I don't know if that's changed recently, but I know at that time, uh, pediatric had priority. So still at that time, I wasn't as knowledgeable then as I am now. So I was just like, all right, we're just gonna go day to day, and if I get the call, get the call. We'll get it when I get it. So there was no expectation date for me at that time. But again, it came when it was meant to come.
Okay. Our our friends from YNOTT are all over the broadcast, by the way, Philip. And our good friend Jonathan Traylor is here saying hey. So
Mr. Trailer, Mr. Drake, how are you people? I appreciate you both.
all right. Any complications or issues with the transplant?
Outside of the rejection, no. Recovery went great. Um, Again, it took me maybe three weeks to get physically back active. Because you got to realize at that time I was consistently on the field playing football. I ran track, so I was in great shape when I had that transplant. So it took me, all my body needed was that time to rest, which is what I gave it. The only time I got out of bed was go to an appointment. Maybe if somebody came over to say hello, see how I was doing or whatever, you know. But other than that, I stayed in the bed. I gave my body the rest it needed. It recovered just fine. Again, got the call from my doctor only 3 months after the surgery, saying I was able to go out in public and and do stuff. Which at that point I definitely made a leap and jump to get active physically again. Um, had a basketball court in my backyard, so for those 3 months, well, 2 months after I had gotten back in shape, I go in the backyard, shoot around. I had a cousin lived on the street, so he'd come down, come in the backyard and shoot with me or whatever. So I wouldn't be back there by myself. And it was a great time to learn who I am as a person. Um, so definitely the post part of transplant went great.
Okay. Um, prior to 2010, then you didn't have issues or complications with your kidney.
Nope, none.
All right. Let's talk about your experience with the transplant games. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Pittsburgh, I think, in 2008. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Met a lot of wonderful people within the transplant community that I still currently talk to this day. Um, I was lucky enough to have the transplant nephrologist that I had. Excuse me, let me turn this off.
Uh-oh.
Um, I was blessed enough to have the pediatric transplant nephrologist that I had, where I don't know how he met this lady, but it was a lady named Lily, and she came in, I guess, talking to the pediatric nephrologist in the transplant center, wanted to give a presentation on the transplant game. She had moved out here from Pittsburgh, so the games were in her hometown, and she was trying to recruit for Team SoCal. And when I walked in, my doctor was so excited he didn't even start the appointment. He was just like, "Hey man, I want you to go sit in this presentation." I'm like, "Can we get through the appointment first?" He's like, "No, we can get through that later." I'm like, "I don't have all day to be sitting here talking to you. As much as I love our conversations, I just don't have all day." He's like, "No," he's like, "Just go sit in there. It's not gonna take long." So I went in there. She did her presentation. She brought a tripod board and everything, and later presentation. I was like, "That's great." I said, "One problem." She said, "What's that?" I said, "I'm 18 with absolutely not 1 cent to my name. How are you expecting me to get here?" And I said, "If I can get the money to go," I said, "then I will definitely love to go, because just the presentation alone had pulled me in." And so I remember I went back in the room and saw my doctor, and he said, uh, "What? So what'd you think?" I said, "I'm gonna tell you the same thing I told her." I said, "I'm 18 and don't have a cent to my name." And he looked me dead in my eyes and said, "Don't worry about it." I'm like, "Now, when he said don't worry about it, do you mean like don't worry about it, like the money will come? Or like what do you mean here?" He's like, "Don't worry about it." He said, "I'll get UCLA to pay for it." By the next week, I got an email from UCLA paying my game registration, my team registration, my hotel room, and my flight. They paid
Wow.
for everything for me to go to these games. And again, that was just one of the many blessings that came to me after this transplant. And again, I mean, it's and I say this to anybody that hasn't gone: if you get the chance to go, go, because it is a wonderful experience to be able to be around thousands of individuals that have gone through the same fight you've gone, or helped somebody get out that fight and being a donor, or somebody that in the same instance, but in the difference is at the same time, who signed off for somebody to be able to give you that gift as being a donor family, or have taken care of someone or supported someone that have gone through what we've gone through, because they have something for everybody at the games. Donor tributes, donors can participate now. The patients competition part of it and everything. It's just a great experience that people have to be able to take in at least once in their life. I say, if you can, try to hold out to it's closer to your area. I was blessed enough to have it in my backyard of San Diego, California. Last year in July, Mr. Drake came out and we went in and we had a YNOTT booth out there and stuff like that, and Brandy and Archie and everything, and we had a team, kind of like a team outing out there, and did our thing. So it was again great experience to be able to see it from the non-competition side of it as well as seeing it from the competition side too. So again, like I said, if you get a chance to go, definitely go. Even if you have to save your money, you don't even know where it's going to be. Save up for it. It's every 2 years, every even year. So it'll be back 2024. They haven't given a place yet, but it's definitely coming. So that if you can save up for it, save for it. Starting now for 2026, and they also have the World Games. The World Games, which is in a different country every year. This year it's in Perth, Australia, which something I wish I can go to, but being on dialysis, that insurance don't cover that. So that's just
Right.
out my reach. So but oh my God, I'd love to be able to participate in that.
What did you do as a participant in Pittsburgh? Were you just a spectator, or were you participating as an athlete? What happened?
No, I was a participant. I won gold in the 4x1 relay for track. I won bronze for the long jump, and I won bronze in doubles bowling with Mark Graves, who at the time had just made the transition from Team NorCal to Team SoCal that very same year, which was a super blessing for me because I don't think outside of John Petrick anybody bowls as good as Mark Graves. I mean, he that first game I did what I could. Those 2 games he carried us. I mean, I knocked my spares down and everything, but he lit it up out there, man. So definitely blessed to have him on my team as well, and just a part of the family in general.
Okay. I understand that by 2010, your kidney went into rejection and you ended up back on dialysis. Can you tell us what happened there?
Yeah, went back on in-center. Before that, they actually it was diagnosis was actually acute rejection in the beginning. So they tried a number of IVIGs and steroids and things of that nature. It got to the point where it was just done, right? So they had to call it. They said it was it failed. Put me back on in-center dialysis, and I remember I had a seizure in September of almost a month or so after that. I had a seizure, and a bad one. And I remember the next month I had this really, really bad headache, which was the beginning of that seizure. I had a bad headache, and it ended up having a seizure. So, I remember I went to my pops and said, "Man, my head is killing me. Like I need to go to the emergency room. I don't want it to be another seizure again. If it is, I want him to be able to catch it. Do whatever." And I remember we got there, and I was kind of like in and out. So remember the doctor came in and said, "Mr. Jones, you have a brain bleed on the right side of your head. So we're gonna need to take you into emergency surgery. They're cleaning the rooms and stuff now. So as soon as that gets done, we'll come get you and take you up to OR." So at that time, made the call to my mom. Made the call at that time was my girlfriend, and told them what was going on. And at the time, my girlfriend went to Sacramento State, and I remember after I got off the phone with her, I had to pass out. I know I didn't just fall asleep because I was just too wide awake for that. But I remember when I remember waking up and my mom was there. They had moved me upstairs to a room, and I woke up, and you open your eyes real slow, and I looked and I saw my mom standing there. She was standing on the TV tray, and TV dinner tray, and we were just sitting there talking for a minute, and the nurse walks in and she goes, "Okay, Mr. Jones, let me just give you the steps of what's going to happen for the surgery." And she goes, "Well, first, the doctor's going to drill 3 holes in your head." I said, "Let's stop right there. Let's pause. Am I going to be asleep for this process?" She's like, "No, we can't put you to sleep yet. My mama looked at her and said, "You must not know who this is." I mean, because my son can take a lot of pain, but he ain't taking that pain. That's just not one he's gonna do. I was like, "You better listen to the woman because she knows what she's talking about. She's my mother for a reason. I'm not about to sit here and just let you drill holes in my head." But what I found out is that that's actually a true part of that process. I mean, I've seen it, a number of times through surgeries where people have brain injuries and they're getting rushed in the OR. And for them to kind of relieve that pressure, and it's a certain reason why they have to do it, but they drill the holes in first before they cut or put them to sleep. What reasons? Is what it is. But um, so yeah, I mean that the brain surgery thing was scary, but not scary. It was scary just for the fact that because of my grandfather had just had the same situation a year before. Oh, I'll take that back. 3 years before, he had fallen, had head injury, needed brain surgery, and I saw how that went because me and my mom used to go to Pasadena every day to go take care of him while the lady that he was with went to work. To give her that time to go to work, and she would come back, and then we'd leave and go home. So I saw that process of what brain surgery can do for you or to you. And that was where I was more or less frightened at. Not frightened about necessarily the recovery time or anything like that. It was just, will I be who I am? Will I be able to recognize who I love, who my family is, who's important in my life? Will I remember all the stuff I went to school for, all these night days, getting up at 5:30 in the morning to go to school, which I felt probably half the time as a bad kid, somewhat growing up that it was for no reason. Well, I wasn't bad. I just threw that part in there. But so that was where I was kind of struggling at. On the other hand, what I realized at the same time was that if God wanted to take me off this earth, he would have did it when I was 4. Because at that time, he really had no reason to say other than something that he knew, which he knows all, which was at this point, this young man is going to do, something great. I don't know. You may not have known what it was, and it might not have come yet, but it's going to happen because there's been plenty of times where the Lord could have just said, "All right, it's over. Bring him on home." But he's taking care of me. He's shielded me. He's covered me so much over time that at this point, anytime I go through something, I just look up. I'm like, all right, what am I supposed to do? What's my next step? What path do I take to get through this the way that I need to get through it? So that was really the brain surgery thing. So, and again, everybody gets scared at something, but the one thing that you have to hold on to get through these situations is your faith. If you don't have nothing else to hold on to, you have your faith to hold on to. You have the Lord to hold on to, and that's the only way that you can stay afloat is by holding on to something.
Okay. Let's talk about 2016 for a minute. It's my understanding that you were back in college and went back to the theater group, in particular, a club dedicated to minorities. Can you tell us a little bit about what was going on with your experience with the theater and what club you were in?
So those are actually two separate things. So the theater club and theater program that I'm a part of is different from the teaching club, right? So the teachers club, which was called Urban Teachers Fellowship, which is definitely dedicated to minorities that want to pursue the employment of education, which is teaching on any level. And what we did was we were part of uh, the SETA, which is the Student California Teachers Association, which is a teachers program, a part of the California Teachers Association as a whole. And so they hold conferences like every 2 or 3 months in different areas around uh, the West Coast, or I mean, sorry, California. They do have a national level as well, but um, the teacher thing came about because I remember I sat here long enough and I said, it's time for me to go back to school. What am I going to go to school for though? Because when I originally started school, I went to school for pre-law, criminal justice, and I realized I said I've just been out of school too long. Like, this that dream is gone and withered away. So I said I gotta find something else. So I said, well, what do I want to do? So I realized that coaching was something that I was very passionate about. And so I said, okay, well, what are the steps that I need to take to get there? What degree do I need to get to achieve this accomplishment that I'm setting out to get? And I looked up on the internet and I also thought about my past. What was the one thing that stuck out about coaches when I was in school? 90% of our coaching staff had a job on campus. They want a coach that can be on campus to be able to take control of their team, right? Because if you don't have somebody there that can take control of them, they run wild like animals and just, act like they own the school. But like our offensive coordinator was part of security. Our running back coach was a English teacher. Our head coach was our running back coach is a math teacher. Our head coach was an English teacher. Our head JV coach was a social studies teacher and became a dean a couple years later. So we always had somebody in some area of the school. So you get caught if you decide like I'm leaving just to leave early, which they did a lot of that at my school. You turn the corner and Coach so and so standing there, or you try to go around and Coach so and so standing over here. So there was no getting around it. So I said, okay, all right, let's look and see if our school has, because again, I'm my whole mind when I was first got to school was pre-law, so that's really all that I knew at that time about the school. Even though I've been around there forever because my father works there, um, and so I looked, let's see what programs they have and academically and stuff, and saw that they had an education program. I said, okay, well, let's see what classes I need to get this degree. So went down the list, found the first two classes. I found out I didn't need a prerequisite for those classes. I enrolled in those two classes for the next day because the semester started the next day. I'm having this thought to myself: it's the last day before I would have to go and have the teacher log me in itself, where I could do it myself online or whatever. So I remember showing up in that first semester. The first semester taught me a lot about myself. I learned a lot. Um, and a funny story about that semester. I tell this story a lot because it's very funny and it's something for younger people to learn off of. I remember at the end of the semester, our teacher gave us the option to do our final together. So we got in this big old kumbaya pile and circled our desks and throwing answers out there and passing answers and talking about stuff. Came to find out we all failed that test. I was like, everybody failed that test? She's like, every last one of you failed that test. I said, well, serves us right for trying to get around it by cheating pretty much. And I mean, it's like but the thing about it is like she gave us the option to cheat and we still couldn't do that part right. So just a word of advice to anybody young watching: just do the work, just study. It's a lot easier because then it's never a situation where you're too late to say, oh, I should have did this or I should have did that. I should have went this way, I should have went that way. When from the beginning, if you just do it, you're in a good place from the beginning. You know what you need to know to get past XYZ. But the theater program, um, I joined that after I had a political science class um, with a fellow actor of mine, Dion Evans, and he was in the class and he came back from a competition they went to in Arizona, and our teacher had told him to come up and make the announcement about how they did or whatever. And I joined theater when I first started school in the first place. I was already in theater and really in the beginning of things, and and then I heard what they were doing, and that they were doing social justice stuff, and I said, okay, I said I can do that. So I the next semester I enrolled in theater, first theater, second theater class. I already took in the first one, and then I introduced myself to our director and was very consistent with making rehearsals and everything, and ended up being an understudy for one of a pretty big play, which is Top Dog Underdog, which is actually a two-man play. Um, and so I had the I call this a great opportunity because it shows you what somebody thinks of you as an actor. But I had the understudy of learning both characters in that play. Um, and so been in the theater since then. Um, took one break again. That time I went to Universal. We had won in a competition before I left. Went to Universal. When I came back um, in 2019, late 2019, we had just started getting ready for the competition for 2020. That happened. Won 3 national awards in 2020, and that was a great horrible time. And I say that because we were ecstatic that we had won those 3 national awards because those awards come from the world renowned Kennedy Center in Washington D.C. And when you win those awards at certain levels, you get the opportunity to go to DC, paid by the American College Theater Festival. They send you to DC, you and your team to DC. You perform, go to workshops, things of that nature. And that was what we were fighting for. That's what we wanted from the beginning was that trip to DC. Then we all know COVID hit, which canceled all of it. And it broke our hearts because we had put in so much work the past 3 or 4 years to accomplish that. And it just got taken away from us. It was like it's like if people that grew up in the country will understand this analogy where you have a mason jar in the top and you trying to catch a light bulb fly or a butterfly or some kind of flying insect and you just running around like this trying to catch it and then it just says, all right, I'm done with you and I'm going, I'm flying away. That's how that felt. Because again, we put in so much work, time, effort, tears, sweat, blood. I mean, we practice, we rehearse 3 days a week for 3 hours and take one break in that time. Sometimes we practice longer than that, especially if we feel we haven't gotten it the way we needed to. So again, I had that opportunity taken from us the way that it was. That one hurt a lot. Um, but now we're getting back on our. We have a production we'll be doing in May in San Diego. Um, and then we're starting our theater club back up, and they asked me to be the president. We have a great executive board for that program, so we'll definitely make things happen for sure. Um, I believe those are only 2 clubs that I've joined since I've been at this school. Um, Gracious enough is my last semester in school at that school. I've gotten 4 acceptance letters so far from colleges around the country, um, and so I'm blessed to be in a position there where I'm able to further my education because not everybody can say that they can do that. You know, a lot of people can say, "Yeah, I got my AA degree," which is great, which is a wonderful feature in itself because some people can't even say that. Some people tried that first year and was like, all right, I'm done. It just gave up, you know. And some people may not have the overall grades to get accepted to certain schools either, where they had the grades to get that AA, but didn't necessarily have the grades to get that continual uh, step in education. So, I'm blessed. I plan on majoring in theater or film, television, media studies. Just depends on where I get accepted at. I've gotten accepted to Cal State LA for their film, television, media program already. I've been accepted in multiple theater programs around the country. I'm waiting on Cal State Fullerton, which is a top theater program in California, which is where I'm crossing my fingers I end up. But if not, then Cal State LA is an awesome school to be at. I know a number of people. Out of Sarah Castro went there as well, and a number of other people that I know went to Cal State LA. So we definitely wouldn't be bummed about being there. But we all have our places that we'd rather be. So
Okay. Let's talk about your experiences with the YNOTT Foundation. I understand in 2019 you became a California rep with them, and since that time you've become an outreach coordinator. You've done 8 events in Southern California and 2 symposiums. Talk to us a little bit about your experience with Edward and YNOTT.
well, for those of you that don't know what YNOT stands for, is Youth Leading Organ and Tissue Transplant. And how I got connected to YNOTT, I met Edward at the Transplant Games in 2018 in Salt Lake City. And, we talked it up for a minute, and he told me what he did. And I said that, I have to be a part of this, because what I understood at a younger age was nothing like this was around when I was coming up as a pediatric patient. Right. And I would look left and right, up and down, diagonally, in circles for it. There was nothing out there like this, like what we give to pediatric patients and their families. And I jumped on it. I remember he said, give me some time to get settled back in. Um, and we'll set something up. So we have been talking for a while through 2019, and then we were talking around August, September time, and he said, hey, would you like to do a toy drive, in your area? And I said, yeah. But yeah, at that time I wasn't as knowledgeable in that area either, and how to find who to talk to get in touch with or whatever. So I took, we didn't do it that year, and I took the year, and I found someone for our school supply drive in August, which I believe was UCLA. Yeah, it was just UCLA that year. And I remember Edward came out, and at that time, Austin Lee was a part of the foundation, and they both came out, and we did a drop off of school supplies at UCLA. Um, I remember that day, that very day, um, when we had the school supply drop off, I made uh, I made it the date for our toy drive drop off, which wasn't until December, but I did it for Cedar Sinai. And so I put that in place months in advance, just so we'll have time to plan. So, um, but again, it's just been wonderful being able to work around like-minded people, driven like people. Um, you know, Edward Drake, Farrell Cook, Brandy Webster, Archie Smith, Victoria, um, and it's again, we consider ourselves a family at the end of the day, and we work as one. That's why I was saying, like, we went to the games last year. We were all out there, had a great time. Working the tables, walking around the expo. We took uh, a sunset cruise with for Brandy's birthday and everything. It was a great time being out there. And we love being around each other. We always on the phone with each other, talking to each other, trying to come up with different ways to make a difference. And that's the thing, is that our goals align with each other. We always have pretty much the same ideas and different thoughts, but for the same reasons. So, I definitely wouldn't change that decision to be a part of this foundation.
Okay. In 2021, you started a second chance show. I've been on the show with you. I've been on the show with you and Tafiro Cook. Between November 4th, 2021 and November 4th, 2022, you've had 4 conferences dedicated to transplant life. Can you tell us a little bit about what a second chance is all about?
A second chance is about giving people the opportunity to tell their stories, and for those stories to be a resource for somebody that is currently going through what that person went through. Because somebody could be stuck in a situation and not know how to get out of it, but can hear somebody else's story and go, okay, I can try that way, or that's another way I can try if this doesn't work. Um, and so the purpose behind it is that I feel that if we can assist one person each interview, we're very easily saving someone's life because they've learned something from their story or one of the educational videos that we do or the conferences itself. It's really about teaching and giving people that time to be able to vent, because some people have never really told their story. Some people have never gotten deep into their story, and it's been plenty of times where on our show where people finally had the time to think about a situation that they went through in their story and literally started to cry because they'd never taken that time to take that time. That's not necessarily grieve, but recover fully from what they went through. Take the time to think and process what they went through. And that's what we do. And again, like that's why I say mostly every time I do a show is I tell people, if you need to talk, I'm here. Tafaro Cook is here. Fred Hill is here. Jonathan Traylor is here. Jim Myers is here. We're here for a reason. So the reason why we call ourselves advocates is to be able to assist you when you need it. If we don't have an answer, we know somebody that does. So never be afraid to contact any one of us. If you see anybody with a show, magazine, YouTube channel, whatever the case may be, and they call themselves an advocate, never be afraid to contact them. Now, there are some out there who just, you got to set an appointment. Those are the ones who think they're bigger than what they're actually supposed to be doing. But, with us, again, and us as live stream hosts, producers that are in it to again, save and change lives, we'll never see ourselves bigger than the dream that we're trying to accomplish, which is save people's lives, change their lives, have them live a healthier lifestyle, a more active lifestyle, give them the tips and tricks and the trades that they need to be able to stay away from transplant life or be able to live an easier life, whether you're pre-transplant, post-transplant, or whatever. We don't never want to just be like, oh yeah, you're a new member, come on in. Like, we want you to stay away from the area that we had to endure. I wouldn't wish this on the worst person in the world. But I mean, we had to go through. We just had to go through it, and that's what makes us fighters. We never gave up. We kept going. We kept pushing. We did the things that we needed to do to make sure we got to this point. We educated ourselves. We involved ourselves with the right people who need to be around us for us to get from point A to point B in our life. I look at great people like yourself, George Franklin, who we just had on our show on Wednesday, who are living wonderful, wonderful lives. And in somewhat later years is but it's because that you took the time again to educate yourself, change your diet, do the things you needed to do. You understood the assignment. And so, I take my hats off to people like you, Robert Chelsea. It's a number of you people who I honestly look up to, not just as that Robert Chelsea, that I look up to, and not just transplant life, but just life general. because you don't get to where you are in life without knowing something, without learning something, without giving back in some kind of way. So, I definitely thank you, Uncle Jim, for being the person that you are. Because like I said, I definitely have learned tremendously a lot from you.
Thank you, buddy. Let's talk about September of 22. And you recently started a Second Chance magazine. Can you tell us a little bit what that's all about?
Yeah, so I mean, the magazine is basically what any other magazine is. It's a way to feature um, some a number of people without having to take the time to come up with a specific show for them, or because you only have so many people on one show, you only have uh, dedicated to a specific reason and things of that nature. So this gives me a way to be able to put the spotlight on people who are making a difference, not just in transplant life, but in the world in general. Of course, these past two editions have been transplant related because that's most of the people that I know in my life is transplant people. So of course these first few editions are gonna look that way for sure. Um, until I get out of my comfort zone, which is transplant world, and start meeting other people. But um, so like this month coming up, March is National Women's History Month. So we're doing a special edition dedicated to all women. All our features they're all women. And so the cover is featuring a number of people that have done wonderful, wonderful, wonderful work in the transplant community. Um, in some way, form, or fashion, and it's really an honor to be able to recognize these people. And I, because I feel like, yeah, a lot of these people they've probably been, on the news, or had a newspaper art interview or anything like that. And that's the other thing, is that people who like been in like newspapers and stuff like that, most of them probably don't even have that. With this magazine, it'll always be there. I mean, that's the somewhat of a good thing about the internet, that is always there. So they have always have a way of going back and saying, "Hey, I was in this magazine. You can go pick it up here, or you can, order it, or whatever the case may be. Support, things of that nature." Again, but it was really all about the recognition, because I know uh, how it feels really, uh, to a degree, I should say, um, where you put your all into something and you never really get the recognition that you deserve back from it. And that's not just really just talking about the transplant space. That's just saying in general some things that I've done, that I put hard work and effort into, and nobody ever said thank you, good job, great work, none of that. And so I take pride in being able to feature, whoever decides to, be in our magazine, as a feature. So again, those first two editions turned out great. Had a lot of people reading them and checking them out, which is also, also a blessing. Um, and so again, got to have this next one, and then for donate life. I'm actually to do kind of a remix version for Donate Life Month, where I'll go back to some of the people that I had. Well, all the people, because in my first edition I really had four features really in it. I had some donors in it as well, but these four individuals, I'll be doing a Q&A article with them, and then I'll probably pick about three or four other people to Q&A as well for them for Donate Life Month. And then we probably won't come out with another article until, I mean, another edition until I believe it's July. So,
Okay.
and just really trying to make a difference, man. Again, trying to save and change lives. The magazine, like you said, if it's not just features, has different columns in it. Artistic view, culinary, um, exercise, nutrition, motivation, and inspiration. And I couldn't be without a better group of people that I have behind me in that. Um, Alana Carroll, Jennifer Ford, Tafaro Cook doing exercising, and Fred Hill. All these people. Uh, Outside, Jennifer is known in an artistic uh, area, but not really so much in the transplant area. Outside of like the few times she's done motivational Mondays with myself and Fred, but um, Tafaro, Fred, Alana, they're all well known in the transplant community. We know Fred Dials is not your life and reset. So for our kidney care coaches, Alana Carroll with Clean Plate Catering, where she just partnered with Sharon Rouse during Christmas time to go feed dialysis patients. I believe they fed over 800 dialysis patients in the Baltimore, D.C. area, which is a wonderful, wonderful accomplishment to be able to do. Um, so yeah, again, just another blessing under my belt to be able to provide that to people.
Excellent. Our good friend Michael Gilchrist is wrote a note. He says your story's amazing.
I
So
appreciate
shout
you.
out to Mike and Christina for checking in. Okay, we're in the home stretch here, Philip. Before we conclude our discussion for the evening, is there any final statement or remark that you wish to make to the audience?
Yeah, if you are a donor family, recipient, supporter, press press the issue respectfully to people in your family, surrounding people, whether you're in school, you work, you jog every morning with a group of people, ride bikes with a group of people, whatever the case may be, to register to be an organ donor, because there are too many people. I'm not just saying just kidney patients, because I see myself as a transplant advocate, not just necessarily a kidney patient advocate. So there are too many transplant people on the list. Now, granted, there are a number of uh, kidney patients that are on dialysis that will hopefully make their way to the list, which will more than likely make the numbers go up. But please have the conversation. Again, I was talking to someone. I believe it was Jan Flanders was on our show on Wednesday, and I asked her why does she think it's hard for people to check that box when they register for their license. And we had a good discussion about that, and you say it needs to start at the table. Sit people down at the table and just discuss it with them, why it's important that they register as an organ donor, or try to donate a kidney because you can live off one kidney, or donate part of your liver because your liver regenerates to full capacity after a certain amount of time. Even after you cut off 60% of the liver, and it's going to grow back to its normal capacity within a certain amount of time. um you don't have to give the whole liver. Nobody can give the whole liver, but you know um so take that time, sit down with them, explain uh, what saving someone's life can do, because it's important. We A lot of us, like myself, honestly, I had no clue really what transplant life was like until I got into it. Knew something about it, as in was coming towards me, but again, 16, 17 years old, I'm in school. I got to do enough reading as it is. I don't like reading. Even if it was on the internet, I'm still not trying to read it. but what I did was when I made that change into being a transplant recipient, I made time to learn about what I was experiencing, what I was going through, what other people are going through, which is why I can sit down and talk to any dialysis patient, any transplant patient, any nephrologist, any cardiologist, any pulmonologist, anybody in the transplant community, and stand toe to toe with them and discuss anything that they want to discuss, because I took that time to learn and read and educate myself. Again, I even at that time I was still in school. Told you, I went back to school, got my diploma. I did and did not want to do it. I did want to do it because I wanted to make sure that I knew the best way to take care of myself. I didn't want to do it because that meant I was doing extra reading, and I was already doing enough reading in school. And, kids hate to read. So, well, some of them, I know some kids that love to read. So, but so you please have that discussion. Again, like I said, all it takes is a sit down talk at the table. And here's an easy way you can do this. If you don't wait for somebody to finally come over, you're not trying to wait till Easter, Thanksgiving, Christmas when that's the only time they come to your house. Set up a Zoom call. That way you can have as many people as you want on that call. You find somebody on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever, and you say, hey, can you come present on organ donation, to my family and the importance of it? I'm sure Kidney Solutions would have a ball doing something like that, because that's what they do. They work on that side of trying to get people donors and stuff like that. Second chance kidney care coaches, dialysis not your life. Why not? Chris Klug Foundation it's a number of people that you can go to. Jonathan Traylor. Um, it's a good number of Shirley Brill, Trish Phillips. It's there's an unlimited supply of people out here who have the knowledge to be able to assist you if that's what you want to do. All it takes is for you to open your mouth and come out and ask. My dad always told me, closed mouth don't get fed. So if you don't ask, you'll never know.
Right. Well, I just wanted to say, Phillip, thank you for coming on tonight and raising awareness and educating us and sharing your terrific story. It's been a wonderful broadcast, and we all learned so much from listening to you. I have a few announcements to make. I'm going to let you go now. And again, I just wanted to say thank you for taking time and speaking to us tonight.
Anytime. You just let me know, and I'll be here.
Appreciate that, my friend.
Thank you.
All right,
have a great
everybody.
Night.
You have a great night. And I just wanted to say thank you for watching our broadcast. And wow, lots of great comments tonight. And we will be seeing you soon. Some upcoming guests on the 24th of February. March Scotch is going to talk to us about his incredible kidney history, his incredible kidney advocacy, and his travels. Our old buddy Mark Miller on March 10th is going to talk to us about his kidney journey, his experiences on social media. Lisa Sampson's going to be on with us March 17th. We're going to talk about her book and her kidney story. Our good friend on March 31st, Bobby Reed, is going to be with us. We're going to talk about her son, Alex, get an update, find out what's going on with Alex. Alex was on dialysis, had a transplant, is back on dialysis. He's looking for a donor. So, that should be an interesting broadcast. Elaine Perlman, super advocate, is going to be on with us April 7th. Dr. Lindsay Johan is going to be on with us on the 12th of April. She's going to give us her perspective on kidney disease and positive outlook and the importance of communication between yourself and your physicians. On the 21st, we're going to have Stephanie Lynn Moser on the broadcast. If you remember, Stephanie has PKD and she has Gitterman's at the same time. So we're going to talk about her experiences. Maria, and I'll just spell the last name, Grijalva, is going to be on the broadcast. She's an NKF award winner, so we've got a lot to talk about there. Quentin Jones on May 26th is on the broadcast, and on the 2nd of June, Professor Jonathan Barrett is on the broadcast. We're going to talk about IgA. And on the 9th of June, tentatively, Robert Chelsea is scheduled to come on with us. He's the guy that had the face transplant, the world's first face transplant. So that should be very interesting. So at any rate, that's what's coming up in the future. I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight and all the great comments and watching us. And you have a good evening. Take care. Oops.